All right. Hey, everybody out there that may see this once I get this posted on my account. I am running a Streets of Avalon game. My name is Jared Rasher. I write for Gnome Stew, and I also have my What Do I Know blog, which you probably know if you came to my YouTube account. And I mentioned Gnome Stew first because I have John Arcadian here.
What? Where?
Shit, I owe that guy money.
So I am going to go through, and this is going to be our session 0. So we're going to establish our lines and veils, who our characters are, what everyone's playing, what their connections to each other are, and what their connections to the city of Avalon, because we are playing in this setting, which is, yes, there are books. The Streets of Avalon was a great setting that was launched last year. And Brett from Gaming and BS, it was his baby, and several of the people in this stream helped to work on that. And so we're going to go ahead and play a campaign in this. And right now, after that preamble, I am going to say, Bob, why don't you introduce yourself to the people that may be watching this, which may just be like me and my family, maybe? I don't know.
All right, then. So I'm Bob Everson, and I am the editor at Gnome Stew. I am also one of the editors of the Streets of Avalon book, and therefore I work for Encoded Designs. And I am also on the Misdirected Mark podcast as one of the hosts. And it is a pleasure to be here playing this game with you all, because I have been wanting to play in the Streets of Avalon since we started working on the book. So looking forward to this campaign.
Yay. All right. John, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I am John Arcadian. I also happen to work on the Streets of Avalon book. I was the art director and did some layout for some things and helped with a lot of the video editing, which is why I'm using this video edited background from the Streets of Avalon Kickstarter. Yeah, I am gonna do a lot of stuff with crows. That's what's gonna happen, just forewarned.
All right. Brandon, why don't you introduce yourself to the good people that may be watching this?
I'm Brandon Barnes. After we got through all the illustrious people here, you get to the riffraff, and I am nothing but a hanger-on. I was a Kickstarter backer. I did look at the book and realize all of our names are in this book. And I've been really looking forward to this. I have played a one-shot in Avalon, one of the adventures, and yeah. I'm looking forward to it. Big fan of this type of genre. I love cities. So
awesome. And Eric, our local Warrigator, why don't you introduce yourself?
I am among the other Whoa, that didn't really work.
He is one with the cosmos.
that didn't work at all. My beard got included in the image, background image. I am one of the other riffraff along here. I am a fellow Kickstarter backer. Listener to all of the podcasts, and fun member of the community. Hopefully adding to the community rather more than I take away from it.
You have, definitely, Eric.
and he's a heck of a GM too, because I've gotten to play. Well, I was gonna say, I think, Bob, have I been in games with you yet?
I've been in a game together, maybe. I don't remember, but my brain is not the sharpest anymore because I'm old. Technically, I'm not D&D anymore.
Yes. Bob is aged out of the D&D 45 plus. So, well, what's funny is I've interacted with people so many times at conventions. I don't remember whether I've just hung out with people at conventions or played with them.
Well, if you've played in a game of Numenera with Eric as the GM, then we may have played together, because I've played his Numenera games.
To like 6 degrees of Bob Everson.
Oh, believe me, 6 degrees of me is probably not the game you want to play. Far more connections.
All right, and I will say this up front, because back when I was recording my Shadow of the Demon Lord game, I remember this about halfway through the session after we had done something, but this may be a TVMA thing just for language, not necessarily for content. But usually in that Shadow of the Demon Lord thing, as soon as somebody did something horrific, we would be like, oh, by the way.
We are explicit. You have been warned.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm sorry because I will cuss and be like, oh shit, I cussed. Damn it. Fuck, why did I do?
It's the Blues Brothers.
Yeah, I will probably drop an F-bomb somewhere along the line just because I'll be like, oh, and then I'll be like, ooh, this could be content that somebody else is watching.
So yes, there may be some adult language used in this particular viewer discretion is advised. So I think before we even get to the actual characters, what I wanted to see is what part of the city do you want to live in? Because really the neighborhood is going to be very important to your characters. So getting an idea for what part of the city you want to live in is going to be kind of the basis for, how we build this and what kind of connections you have. So I just kind of jotted down some quick notes, and some of you may have a better idea of what you want out of the different parts of the city. But in general, the northern section of the city is mainly nobles or people working for the noble houses. So that's going to be a lot more, either political intrigue or getting caught up in someone else's political intrigue and that sort of thing. You might see a lot more of the disparity between what, the living conditions for the regular people are and the opulence that some of the nobles live in, if you have a campaign like that. The dock ward is the southernmost part of the city. In addition to being next to, I think I have my cardinal directions right. If everybody remembers this properly. Now I'm going to look at my map here because it's like I'm almost certain I did this right, but anyway. But the dock ward is a little bit of the poorer section of the city, and it's basically it's where there's a lot of laborers. You're offloading and loading up the ships. You're going to see the bargemen, which are kind of sort of the equivalent of halflings in that portion of the city, maybe a little bit more. And there's a lot more, even though there can be these elements in every part of the city, that's probably going to be a little bit more like, gang wars, turf battles, situations like that, potentially helping people that aren't going to get helped by the authorities. That's sort of the type of story you might see in the dock ward area. The garrisons, which are either the east or the west garrison, either one of those garrisons is much more the middle class area of the city. Doesn't mean it's great there, but it's not dock ward. You might actually have the griffins help you once in a while without extorting you or beating the crap out of you or blaming you for another crime. Maybe, not promising anything, but both of those are kind of more the working class sections of the city, and they're called the garrisons because, of course, the griffins, which are the people that ostensibly patrol, defend the people. They have their garrisons on either side there, and then the final area that is sort of an area but not an area is the Central Bazaar. And the Central Bazaar is where you're most likely to see people that are from outside of the city. It's where there's just like all sorts of trade markets from all over the place. And the stories you might have there is you might be working for a merchant house that is, dealing with people that come in and out of the city. And you might see a bunch of different types of people a little bit more. It might be a little bit more crime, but from the angle of actually trying to score a good amount of money, that sort of thing. So, I mean, there's way more nuance to that, but I just kind of wanted to give that quick sketch and then get an idea of what section of the city you might be interested in having your neighborhood in after that.
Oh.
Those all make fun, interesting stories.
Yeah.
Like, I certainly don't see my characters being in the noble section, which is why it might be interesting to set it there. Like, why are you here? Sort of thing. But I do think there's a lot of stuff in it. And like, I love, the giant city, but like the scummy aspect of it, the like, we're all just trying to survive, like, I like those tropes too.
I'm a big fan of Guy Ritchie movies, so docs sound good to me. I mean, I'm not sold on that. I can go any way, really. I was thinking, yeah, nobles, but I do have one character idea that they could be from or hanging out there.
I like the docks as well.
Yeah.
Bob, are you okay with that?
Yeah, let's do the docks.
Okay. So there might be a little bit more rough and tumble going on in this campaign. I like it. That gives me some ideas. Obviously, like we said, there's some ideas for all these different sections of the city, but that's definitely it gives you the chance to both deal with the being in a bad situation and also potentially helping people that need help that aren't going to get help from anywhere else if you're of a slightly more heroic bent. So, all right. So now that we know that section of the city and that's where our neighborhood's going to be at, I think let's check everybody's pulse to see what they're thinking, what ancestry and class and background you're kind of looking at here. And I'm not going to put anybody on the spot, but let's go with Bob first. What are you thinking?
Right now, I'm kind of leaning towards an Outlander. And I was kind of originally thinking something in the melee bent, their standard fighter type, or perhaps even barbarian. I am not opposed to going into something like a cleric or a wizard if we need something like that based on everybody's feelings, but nobody else really wanted to go that way. I'm very flexible in that area. I have been the doctor in so many campaigns, so it's easy for me to fall into that role. So if I need to go there and be the cleric, that's fine. If we decide we want to do like some kind of cleric on a rope or fend for ourselves, that's fine too. But my initial thing was, somebody who beats people up, kind of fightery.
Outlander.
I like that you lead with somebody who beats people up. Oh yeah, a fighter. Like, no, I just beat people up.
I mean, we are in the docks.
Oh, and for anyone that is watching this that has not had a chance to look at this wonderful campaign setting yet, one of the suggested alternate rules, which does appear in the DMG, I don't know that we ever specifically mentioned that the default that we're going with here is Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, but we are going to be using Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. And one of the suggested alternate rules that's in the DMG is the slow healing and slow recovery. So if you are familiar with 5th edition D&D, what we're going to be doing for this campaign is short rests are actually 8 hours. Long rests are when you have 7 days that you haven't been doing anything else.
Wow.
Yeah.
But I did add in an alternate rule that was originally in the Tal'Darai campaign guide, which is you can take a short rest when you only have 5 minutes, just like that, and you take a level of exhaustion if you do it, because your adrenaline is basically what recharged you. So
cool.
If you want to if you want to suffer the consequences of getting more and more levels of exhaustion, you can take short rest fairly quickly.
All right.
So we have sort of a non-committed Outlander beat stick. John, what are you thinking? Other than
No. I want to be one of the riffraff next.
All right. Let's go to Eric then. We'll flip to the opposite side.
Okay, so I am the closest that I had to the biggest piece of the aspect of my character that I had was recovering alcoholic. Like recovering alcoholic hit bottom recently and is trying to dig up from bottom, like lost, got kicked out of the house by his family, and I'm not sure if that was I was initially thinking fighter as well, but I think that warlock would also be extremely interesting to play in that sense. So I think I think my first pick right now is warlock, but I'm willing to consider others if somebody really wants the caster role.
Okay. Do you have an ancestry in mind for this?
No. Probably the commoner, because I could if we were going to be, I had a moment of panic, because if we were going to be in the noble sector, I'd be like, okay, am I a noble that, like, because it's really fun, like, because can I be a noble whose nobility family kicked them out, like fall from the highest of heights and
Sure, that sounds fun.
completely
Yeah.
Shunned and banished from the nobility section?
That might actually be fun, but I mean, it's
Yeah.
up to you, obviously.
That's why I'm going to be a noble, a failed noble, a banished noble, warlock, with I'm not sure what my background is going to be though.
Okay, we're just kind of brainstorming now, so that's cool.
Mhm.
Brandon, what are your thoughts on ancestry and class here?
Okay, so I came to the table with 3 things in mind. The first 2 are both bargemen, and they're basically just variations on the same thing. Rogue or ranger, going with the urban ranger option that is in the Archivist book that came out. So yeah, that would be child of a wizard, and the father had left the seafaring industry. He's sort of the rebel, but then my character's kind of a rebel against his father because he doesn't want to necessarily just stay stationary. So yeah, roguish kind of swashbuckler maybe, or ranger, maybe running across the rooftops, things like that. And then the third option is to do a noble grave cleric. I love grave clerics. I love the concept. This is a great setting for that with the Lachey, but I also thought about possibly being a splinter group from the old religion, being maybe a little bit more, I don't want to say militant, but a little bit more aggressive towards the undead, if you know, kind of, I don't want to say Ghostbuster, but that's kind of what they would be. Or supernatural things like that, trying to find the things that go bump in the night and bump them back. So yeah, those are my 3 ideas.
Okay. All right. Okay, John. You can't duck out anymore.
All right. Crows. Yeah, no. So I mean, I'm I'm basing this very much around real life interests. But what I'm kind of thinking is resurrecting an old character as a bard. Kind of if you've seen The Expanse, the detective character in there, the kind of like he talks to people, like a College of Eloquence bard, who just kind of like goes around, he talks to people, he's connected, he learns things, he kind of like has his hand on the pulse, and in that very kind of Humphrey Bogartish way, like the Big Sleep, he's not the one who's like instigating. He lets people punch him and then learns from that, like he gets into trouble in order to uncover the stuff. And I do definitely want to and I would like to see if I can take Find Familiar as a bard spell. If not, there are feats and other stuff that I can do with that. But yeah, definitely has a kind of like, because the crows are so relevant in Avalon, they're everywhere, they flit around. I definitely want to make that an aspect. And part of that is because of my real life obsession and friendship with crows around Columbus. So, I definitely want to take things that I can't do in real life and do them in this game. Like actually speak to the crows.
That sounds neat. And I love the College of Eloquence bard. If anyone has not looked at it, it's still in Unearthed Arcana phase, but I believe it's going to be in the Theros book. And it's just really, it's a bard that's even better at talking with people and inspiring people when they talk to them. And I really like that concept.
I gotta go take a bio break quick. I'm sorry.
Okay, not a problem.
I'm gonna take advantage of that opportunity myself.
Yeah, Jared, when you posted that Minotaur
Bard
of Elegance, my brain just flashed to that scene in History of the World Part 1. Professional bullshitter. Have you tried to bullshit anybody today? Yes.
So while you're still, and we'll talk to everybody else when they get back, but while you're still kind of conceptualizing here, we'll do a slight palate cleanser
Mhm.
And what I wanted to do is have each person come up with a location in the neighborhood and a person in the neighborhood. And it doesn't necessarily have to be someone you're particularly connected to. It's just something that will be a place in the neighborhood. So I think, since we just talked to John, Brandon, do you have any location that you want to be present in your neighborhood in the South Ward?
I think in the British sense, a gentleman's club, even if it's not necessarily the most high society kind of place, it's a place where the affluent of the dock ward hang out, and probably a lot of like gangster types in there.
I was gonna say I kind of like this idea already, just from kind of the low class but moneyed gang leaders that kind of go there, like, you know, I'm getting like Gangs of New York vibes here.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, I like that idea where it's like, I mean, it's ritzy for the docks, but it's also kind of this low, it's still a rough and tumble place, but it's that rough and tumble place where the people that run the gangs go. And that could be a great place to, if you can get in, gather information, because you have these movers and shakers, even if they're actually movers and shivers. So
It's
or
Wall
if we
City.
accidentally crash into there and, you know, piss some people off.
oh yeah, I like that. That is a good starting place there. John, do you have a location you would like to contribute to this neighborhood?
You know, so the thing that pops to mind, and I have to say this is totally Venture Brothers inspired, but like a version in this, like this tailor who, you know, kind of is there, you know, like he's in the poor area, right? Like tailors are
Mhm.
generally like, they keep track of nice clothes, but this tailor, you know, he or she or they kind of like, oh, I'm gonna keep the poor people's clothes intact, right?
Mhm.
Like, oh, you bring me your stuff, I'll clean it and, you know, sew it up, patch it, here you go, this will last you a while, right? And so that's their cover. Their real thing is they're really a fence. You know, they are like, and that's the like, oh, why did you go see the tailor? Because I had a hole in my clothes and I can't afford to buy new ones. Like, it's a perfect excuse for why anybody in this area goes to see this person, you know.
And I kind of like the idea, because I'm already kind of picturing like people that just gather up a bunch of like intact rags would just like take it there and maybe make a few coppers if they can bring in like a few pounds of rags that you can stitch together some clothes out of.
Well, like
Dude,
Victorian
money
grave
laundering?
robbers.
Yeah.
Boom. Thank you.
That was not to get too far off track, but that's what I loved about the last arc of Clone Wars, because they had a business that was a front that was literally a laundry. All right, so while the two of you were gone, basically I just threw this out here as a palate cleanser while everyone is finishing up their conceptualization. I was just having everybody name a location that's going to be in your neighborhood. So far we have this gentleman's club for like the local gang leaders, and the I'm going to call the tailor's place the rag menders, just because that feels proper.
It feels good. I like it.
Oh, rag and bone.
All right.
Because that was actually a term for the rag and bone man who would
Mhm.
steal things off of corpses and pass them along.
All right then.
All right. So, Eric, do you have an idea for a location?
I would like a watch post, like a watch post that was specifically put in this neighborhood to try to bring order to it, bring order to the chaos. However, the leader of the watch post, instead of being the bringer of order, has succumbed to chaos.
So that feels like a Griffin gone bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm picturing this post also like originally this was like some well-meaning nobles were like, yes, we shall fix the docks and they shall be as lovely as any other place in the city. And this actually, among the griffins, this is a punishment post. If you fucked up somewhere else in Avalon, you end up
Don't
in
make me
post.
send you down to the docks.
Yeah. So I will try and come up with a good name for this particular watch post, like what the griffins call it. So, you know, like they're, you know,
what the nickname is.
Yeah.
Like last ditch or last chance.
Yeah, I like that. That is a good one because you could always find that one good cop that really wants to clean up the docks, but most of them are not going to be that. It's, you know what, it's almost to bring in like a Game of Thrones thought process. It's like the difference between how Jon Snow thought the Night's Watch was supposed to be versus what it actually was when he got there, and it was just like whoever no one wanted anymore that they sent up there.
Yes.
So yeah, I like that. We have some really strong locations. So Bob, what location would you like to contribute to our neighborhood?
I'm thinking of like an apothecary shop. Someone that sells like, you know, the occasional potion or thing in that vein. Especially since we're not going to have a healer.
You're thinking ahead.
I am.
Oh, we got a cleric. Isn't Brandon a cleric?
I haven't decided yet.
Yeah.
That's one of my
okay.
ideas.
He's going between Ranger Rogue or Grave Cleric. So,
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Either way.
but
But an apothecary shop for eccentric things.
And okay, bear with me here. Does this sound good? I kind of like the idea that one, the potions might be a little weird. I mean, it's not just like,
Oh yeah.
look, it's this nice shiny, you know, red potion for healing. It's like this murky brown stuff with like swirling things.
An eye floating in
Most of the
there.
time it does what I intend it to do when I make it.
You have to swallow all the
time.
stuff at the bottom or it doesn't work.
Shake it up really, really well before you drink it.
Yeah. And there's all kinds of like rumors in the neighborhood about what goes into the potion. Yeah, I like this. So yes, we have some really good locations there. Is anybody a little bit closer to being sure about their characters?
I love the bard idea as long as I can take find familiar eventually. You know, even if I do it through a feat.
Yeah, I was gonna say I actually had a grave cleric that took the feat to get the ritual.
Ritual caster.
Yeah. So I had a grave cleric that had a raven with him.
Yeah.
So are we feeling the need? Are we feeling like the lack of healer, or do we care?
I kind of like the gritty idea, like, you know, thinking back to like the Farford and Grey Mouser sort of thing, like, man, I took a bad cut on that one. You know, going to that idea of like, oh, damage is you're exhausted or you're knocked down, and then there's your injury. It's like that could be very cool to be like,
Okay.
yeah, how we better deal with that. Otherwise,
it's a
we're
good
out of
idea.
business.
It's a good idea to stay out of trouble too.
Right.
And it might actually lean towards making that apothecary your like a Ningobble or Shielba type character, where it's like, we need magical support, and yeah, like I know you're already thinking about a warlock, but I mean like we need maybe some healing or something of that nature. Oh, we have to go there now.
I'm pretty sure that I like this warlock idea. I'm looking at the otherworldly patron options. The Shadowfell one sounds very interesting. So that would make, I think that would make me more of a melee caster kind of person.
My favorite that I want to play someday is the Undying. Just because I love that idea that there is just something undead that is teaching you, and I realize part of that is, you know, going back to my childhood and reading about Raceland, because that is totally Raceland and Fistantantalus, even if you never thought that Raceland was a warlock.
I mean,
I'm probably going to be Hexblade Warlock.
Okay.
Cool.
Undying looked interesting, but I think this Hexblade thing fits with what I'm thinking here.
Okay.
Made a deal with something that came out of the shadows to help me escape from rock bottom. Yeah.
And to flavor this slightly more, because Avalon is more nebulous about what's beyond, because there's sort of the void. And if you made a pact with something from the void, it could be very interesting.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
So what are you thinking, Brandon? Because you had a couple of ideas you were floating about.
I'll go with what I was leaning most towards, and that's the Bargeman Rogue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
That sounds awesome. All right. So at this point, what I would like to do is I wrote down. I'm sorry.
We've got Rogue, Bard, Fighter, Warlock.
Mm-hmm. And beat
before I finalize between Fighter and Barbarian.
Go Barbarian.
Was there supposed to be more than just the regular stuff in D&D Beyond based on your invitation, or?
Yeah, they're in it. I don't know that
in your campaign settings. You need to change the setting of allow content sharing or something like that.
Okay. Yes, I have shared this out to my campaigns. Oh, wait a minute. There, I saw it.
Did you just do the Brooklyn Nine-Nine? Was that do?
No. Are you sure you want to enable content sharing for this campaign? Oh, yeah. All right. So now, yes, you all should be able to see the extra stuff that I have unlocked for this campaign. And
then one other mechanical question: the nobility, does that most accurately map to elf or half elf, or do we know?
It's closest to half elf. In the documents, I just kind of ganked their dark vision and gave them the +5 to their speed to reflect their gracefulness.
Okay. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm trying to decide if it's worth monkeying around with D&D Beyond, or if I just should make an Excel spreadsheet for my character sheet.
But for anyone that has not seen the campaign setting, in general, most of the ancestries in the campaign setting are human. The bargemen are kind of not human. They're smallish people that are kind of like halflings that work on the river and on the seas, running boats. But the Outlanders use half-orc stats, but they're actually, people that are just hardier people that are not native to the city. The nobles actually do have elven blood. Elves and dwarves exist in the setting, but they don't commonly interact with human beings. They are removed. It's almost like if you were to picture, like in Norse mythology, how likely it is for a random person in a Norse village to run into an elf. It's more of a mythical thing that existed in the past that somebody saw one time.
Very Germanic sort of idea.
Nice. So I want to just take this in a Word doc for the moment, and I'll try to see if I can convert it into a D&D Beyond later.
All right. So, Bob.
Yeah, I just was, because I was eyeballing the thought of possibly doing something with guns.
Guns are never on our fund, yeah.
I was going to look at the gunslinger, but the gunslinger does not appear to be a thing that's in the...
No, the gunslinger that I approved is, actually, if you look it up on... It's in the Seas of... oh my gosh, the Seas of Odari campaign setting, which is something that is not natively tied to Avalon, but it is something I really liked. That was done by the people at Tribality. If you look up on Tribality's site, they do have a version of the gunslinger on there.
Gotcha.
Tribality, they're the other blog.
That's okay.
Excuse
Last
me.
night when I was on Sean's stream for Mothership, we had a false start where we started streaming and then we stopped streaming. And Jeff Goad mentioned that Spellburn was an Emmy award-winning podcast when we did our false start. When we started over again, Sean went to me first, so I had to remember to say, I write for Gnome Stew, which is an Emmy award-winning blog. So I got it in there. It's
Thank you. No, I kind of love the idea of you being a gunslinger, Bob, because like Avalon is one of those settings where that feels in line. Like that, I know this is very like anti-Keith Baker, but in my current Eberron 3.5 game, like one of my players wanted to be a gunslinger, and I'm like, yes, let's make it happen. Let's modify the Pathfinder rules. But Avalon, any big city sort of campaign is so friendly to that idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of the reasons I wanted to include that version of the gunslinger is that the archetypes that they have under it, one of them is the musketeer, and it is very much like an agent of the crown or the nobility type thing. It's, you know, I love that concept because they can do things like adding their bravado dice to like charisma and intimidation checks. So it's not just about using the gun, it is about the fact that they work for the nobility and they can, you know, wheedle out answers and stuff. And I really like that, but then I also like the sharpshooter and the pistol arrow, which is just, you know, I'm going to shoot you with this pistol and then punch you, you know.
If you mix barbarian and gunslinger, you could do what somebody did in a campaign that I had where they played an ogre gunslinger, and they bought, it was a non D&D campaign, but they bought essentially a feat that let them do innocuous weapon, so it didn't look like a gun, and along the side of their gun it said not a gun, and as the ogre sat there and held this down and it said not a gun, people were like, you can't bring that gun in here. It's not a gun. You're right, it's not a gun. Totally not a gun. Totally not a gun. You're right. Please enjoy, sir.
That was
wow.
That was one of the things I love too in Pillars of Eternity is they have ogres that carry cannons. So you just go into this one cave complex and all of a sudden it's like, what just hit me? And you see this ogre standing with this cannon mounted on its shoulder. Anyway, so we know you're some sort of beat stick. You might use lead to beat people up.
From a distance.
What I would like to try and do next is, since we have a little bit better idea of our characters, I kind of want to see how you know each other. And I'm going to do, I am bringing in all sorts of things that I kickstarted over the last year here. And one of the things that I really liked in another encoded design product that Tracy Barnett did, and they did Iron Edda Accelerated. And what you do there is your last aspect, it's a fate-based game, and your last aspect you connect to one other person in the group. And instead of trying to make sure that everybody has every connection going there, I took the order in which all of you signed up originally, and I was just going to ask each of you to make that one connection to the next person in line so that there is a connection everywhere. You might know each other even more than that, but this is just what the question is going to be to start.
Before we do that, can we do intros again, just so I remember who everybody is?
Definitely. So, Bob, is it going to change your concept of who you are much if you shoot people or punch them real hard, or shoot and punch them?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Sorry.
So I will hurt you. I have options.
So Bob, introduce us to what your concept is so far.
So I am fairly confident that I'm going to be a half-orc outlander who has come into the city to try and, make his way. Kind of thinking a muscle for hire kind of character.
Okay, and that makes sense in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
So we'll bounce to the other end and say, Eric, what is your idea for your character now that you've had a chance to flesh it out a little bit more? I think we know, but in case you tweaked it any.
No, I grew up, I'm a little older. I grew up a pampered member of nobility, got married, had children, and then my vices got the better of me, and I hit rock bottom, was kicked out by my family, and kicked out by my greater family and my close family, and groveled on the streets for some time, barely getting by. Recently, I made a deal with something that came out of the shadows, and I have been pulling my. Can we swear?
Oh yeah.
Pulling my shit together in slowly but surely pulling my shit together and detoxing.
All right. So, and John, how about how fleshed out are you now?
So I'm kind of going to resurrect and rework the concept of this character I have, whose name is Drammin Naket. Naket is a taken name from the kind of like gypsies that he lived with, grew up with, and it means literally unowned. You're one of the unowned. You're this sort of orphaned into this great big, sort of like family, like bigger, broader family. And so he's a little bit shorter, but he is that person who is always around. He's been in Avalon as long as he can remember for the majority of his life. He's always around. He's always been around. He's always listening, and he always has something going on. He's very much like the detective whose name I forget from The Expanse. Like he will butt his nose into people's business to learn what's going on. And while, I'm going to play him as a bard, but not necessarily a music-y bard, like a speaky bard, for that factotum sort of like a little bit of everything. He's just that kind of like always learning, always listening, has a little bit of knowledge about a lot of things.
Okay. And Brandon, how fleshed out are you now?
So I am actually taking this from a character that I've wanted to play for a while. He originally was a planar ranger, but that doesn't really fit in this setting. So this is going to be Baro Broomhill, a bargeman, born and raised in the city. However, his parents are both wizards, and they rebelled against the family traditions of being seafaring and working on boats and stuff. And then my character, Baro Broomhill, Baro, is going to rebel from that, not go and work the sea, but go do his own thing. And what that is isn't exactly clear. He is kind of just a cat about town, doesn't really have any aim, just kind of lives day to day, and is kind of happy-go-lucky.
All right. So now that we got that going, the order that I was kind of wanting to do the connections in is I'd like to go first with how Bob's character knows John's character. So how did you first meet?
Okay.
Who got into trouble, you or me? It's probably me.
Yeah. You said you're kind of talky bardy?
Oh yeah.
I want to say someone gave me some coin to go after you.
Yes.
And so I tracked you down, and just through circumstances, we ended up kind of being able to have a conversation.
Hey, somebody paid you to come after me? I am so freaking honored. Can I ask how much they paid? How much am I worth, please?
Yeah.
I can't match it, but how much am I worth?
Yeah. And I think, I just, you seem like an all right guy. I mean,
You don't want to
helped
hit
me
this
out.
face a fourth time, right?
I think maybe you helped
3
me
was
out as
good.
well.
The message is received. I
Yeah.
get it. I'm staying away.
I'm dead. All right, I like that.
I think we ended up in like a throwdown, and you helped me out, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna finish this contract. I'm gonna give the guy his money back and be like, no, not gonna do it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate this mercy. Ow.
I like it. That is a good connection, especially with our location where we're at here. So now let's see how John's character first met Eric's character.
So you're trying to kind of rebuild your life, right? You're kind of trying to like come back up from your lowest point, right?
After I got kicked out of the noble quarter and banished from the noble quarter, I begged, borrowed, and stole until for whatever drink that I could find, and when I hit when I hit rock bottom, which is an event yet to be defined, I made a deal with I made a deal that had to get out to work towards getting out and getting stable and fixing my life. So I'm early in the process of fixing my shit and
Right.
getting myself detoxed.
I'm trying to think how dark do we want to take this game? Because I don't want to be disrespectful of anything. So going with the idea of like that Bob set up of like, he came after me. Maybe you were my in to get some dirt on the noble family, on your noble family. I'm like, oh, I know people who will pay for that. Hold on. Let me work this. And then as I started to like mess with you, I'm like, oh, even I feel bad.
So you probably squeezed me for every bit of information I had, and I was willing to pay for it for the money, for the booze,
have another.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe you should stop. Maybe you're good. No. Let's not go. Let's not go to the next whiskey bar, okay? like I started to have a guilt about it, and so maybe I'm kind of like trying to make sure you're not falling off because I feel bad because I pushed you a lot. I pushed you very close to the edge, and then I'm like, I don't want you to fall off. Actually,
Oh, I think I know what my rock bottom was.
glad I can inspire that.
I found my last secret that I wasn't willing to sell.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Nice. I like that.
I didn't even know that I wasn't willing to sell it until I was about to sell it, and then
I like so far we have had a chain of predatory behavior from one character. So in that vein, let's see, how does Eric's character know Brandon's character?
all right, Brandon, tell me again what's your character's background. I'm sorry.
Son of a wizard, rebelling against parents, just kind of hanging out, being cool, running around, doing crazy stuff, experiencing life, living life.
Would you spend time in the noble quarter or in the docks or?
Actually wherever things take me, wherever the wind kind of takes me at the time. I wouldn't say that I wouldn't be out of the noble quarter. I might have gone there and gone to a party or just ate at a cafe there, or just something off the wall. Who knows?
So but you spend most of your time in the docks area.
Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to think that my parents are probably in like the middle areas, and so I might avoid those. There's also something that I might get to in my backstory that I'm avoiding in those areas as well. That might be a little bit dangerous to me.
I'm guessing. So let me know if this works for you. I think you probably saved my life by pulling me out of a gutter just as somebody was about to slit my throat.
Yeah. That sounds about like right, wrong place at the right time kind of thing.
Baro already seems like the most noble of any.
Might be, honestly.
And on that note, how does your character Brandon know Bob's character?
Okay, yeah. So we're getting out of the chain of predatory behavior, and one of the things I'm thinking is that I might have encountered Bob's character kind of earlier in my life. So I think we go back a little bit. Kind of the inciting incident that partially keeps me out of my home turf. I shouldn't say my home turf, but where I grew up, is that I pissed off somebody, probably, I don't know, some up and coming middle class person. I stole some swords from them, but along with that, I stole some other stuff. So whatever weapon you end up choosing, Bob, I'm guessing that I probably had that. And as I was running away, I happened to run underneath your legs. You stood there, blocked them, not like really knowing what was going on, and I got away. Later on, I met up with you and said, "Hey, thanks for helping me out. Hey, check this out. I'm giving you this."
Cool. I like it.
All right, that sounds good. I think this is something I probably should have done sooner, but since I have it in my notes, I will make sure to do this. I wanted to go over for anybody that may be watching this, and also for all of us. Before we started this, I put out a Google form for everyone to be able to put in their lines and veils. So I'm going to, read through that now so we all have it fresh in mind, and also so that anybody that might be watching or listening to this also knows where we're coming from with this overall campaign. So our lines that we came up with, and in some cases, some people had things that were veils, but other people had those same things for lines. So that bumped it, into the line category. So basically, for anyone that's not familiar with it, lines are things that we're just not going to have in the campaign. We're not going to deal with them. We're not going to, we're not going to engage in that content. Veils are things that they can be part of the story. We're just not going to feed many details into those things. So what we're going to look at here is, for our lines, we do not have any violence against children. We have no violence against animals, and I wanted to clarify this. Is this, is this going to be no violence against domestic animals, against like pets, or is this in general? You don't want to have to run into like wolves or,
That was me. That was like domestic animals, pets. Like I don't want to their dog and
like nobody's going to hurt your pets or your
it's just it just makes me
like no torture.
So so like if a killer whale is trying to eat you on a boat, that's
damn right we're gonna stab that thing.
Gotcha.
Moby Dick that thing in the eye.
From hell's heart I stab a thing.
All right,
so no John Wick.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. No John Wick moments. Oh my God, that killed me. Anyway, so we have no overtly sexual material. We have no sexual assault, that is one I always throw that on there before anyone else as the game facilitator. I'm not going to deal with that. We also have no plague, and I did want to actually dig into this one a little bit. I get, we don't want to deal with like Avalon having an Avalon-wide pandemic, but is it all right to portray someone having a disease as long as it's not portrayed as like this citywide threat that's going on?
Yeah, I think that was one of my veils. I believe it's where I put it on. But yeah, it's more of a thing of like, yep, we know what that's
Yeah.
like.
We're not going to have that as a major
get
theme.
that, yeah.
But yeah, like
if
if some necromancer like cast a spell at you and you got sick, that's
it's just like, we all know what it's like to live under isolation.
Yeah. And for veils, and I think most of the veils were things that I had because everything else kind of like hit one or the other categories for almost everybody else. But for veils, I have torture details. Personally, I don't necessarily like PCs getting into using torture because even grim and gritty protagonists, after a while, like, I'm just going to throw this out here. I love Supernatural, but man, there was a while there when Dean got like full on into let's torture everything that, we run across, where I'm like, I don't know if I can keep doing this.
Yeah.
And so basically, but part of this is just so that like, if you know that like this gang lord did something to get information out of somebody, we don't necessarily need to go into what they did. You just know they roughed this person up off screen, so it's a veil. It's a thing that's, we know happens, but we aren't going to necessarily engage with it, too much on screen. And the other one is just another one of my personal quirks. I get people can get in water and drown, and that is a danger, especially in a port city. I personally have almost drowned before, so I don't like getting too many details into it. Like, the more I start visualizing it, the less comfortable I get. So that's just something where it's like, I'm okay with mechanizing it and having someone make checks, but I'm not going to describe it too deeply because
no details.
Yeah. So that's an issue there. So those are our lines and veils. So we have those out there. That's what we're going to kind of steer around for the rest of the campaign. And now that we have all of that, this last thing that I would kind of like to do is I have, instead of the usual questions that you have for your backgrounds, I have some specific Avalon questions. And what I would actually like, so instead of doing your regular questions for whatever your background is, I would like these to actually be those traits that your character keys on. So we don't necessarily have to hone it perfectly tonight, but if we can like get those into like a sentence where it kind of is encapsulated, that would be awesome. And what I'd like to do is I'm going to ask like the first question of each person and then go to the second question and ask each person. And you can always modify these or tweak them a little bit, but I just kind of want these in everybody's head because these are also going to help flesh out the setting a little bit more too. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab the right piece of paper, because that's not the right piece of paper. The first thing I'm going to do is we will start with Eric this time. What way are you different from the other people in this neighborhood?
I grew up with privilege.
All right.
I grew up with having everything handed to me, everything I needed at the drop of a hat, and I'm not used to that not being the case anymore.
All right. That sounds good. That is a good start there. Brandon, how are you different from other people in this neighborhood?
Everyone's always trying to get something or do something or be something, and I'm just kind of going along with the flow.
All right. John, how are you different from other people in this neighborhood?
I probably like the animals of this neighborhood better than I like the people of this neighborhood. like it. Definitely the weird sort of person, like, oh, there's Crow Man, and just sitting there talking up to a crow, and just like, hey, that feels so much less pretentious.
So to unpack that a little, so I know your main focus is going to be crows, but would you say that like even like other random animals that you see in the district, you're more compassionate towards than?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's the sort of thing where it's like, much like Brandon said, people always have an angle. There's always something they want. Drammin knows he has an angle, but he justifies it. Animals, their angle is very like, oh, you got some cheese? Love some cheese. Here, great. Have some cheese. Thank you for being honest.
Now
enjoy that, Mr. Rat.
That's probably why you glommed onto me, because I wasn't too far from an animal when you found me. Except instead of cheese, it was booze.
Yeah.
Right.
Do you want some
Right.
alcohol? Here, have some alcohol.
Excellent. Here you go. Enjoy that. I get you. You say what you want.
All right. And Bob, how is your character different than the other people in this neighborhood?
Interesting question. So far, all the stuff I've got in my head is like, that shit's a dime a dozen. Like, I'm not the only Outlander around here. I'm probably not the only half orc around here. Maybe it's the fact that I like guns. Maybe there aren't a lot of people on the docks that like guns.
Yeah, 'cause, and they also, they're a little bit more expensive. So a lot of the gangs around here probably aren't running around with
How
those.
reliable are guns in this setting?
They'll foul on a 1, but they don't like blow up in your face or anything. Which it's really funny.
Not fully experimental or something like that.
No, it's the flintlock, technology is pretty well solid. It just hasn't really moved beyond that.
Okay.
But and do people believe that? Like, that's the thing. Like,
yeah.
Bob knows his gun isn't going to blow up in his face. It's jammed. Does anybody else believe that?
You know what? That could be a good thing to assume that like nobles, like in the noble, section where people go hunting with these things and everything, might know the ins and outs. People on the docks might hear all kinds of stories about how, I knew somebody that picked one of those up and tried to fire it against one of the griffins to defend themselves, and it blew their face off.
Holy
so
crap,
maybe
that's that half orc with the friggin' flintlock. Don't stand too close.
Yeah, so like maybe people in this
people
in this neighborhood like have these legends about how dangerous firearms are, and the
give him space,
like unstable alchemical things that could blow up at any second. And
I heard the only way he keeps it from blowing up is taking the blood of babies and dipping his gunpowder in it. Oh.
Oh man. So yeah, I kind of like that as like a local urban legend there. All right. So and what ideally everyone here is familiar with fate, correct? What I'm looking for is like once we get these answers is to try and kind of turn those into basically aspects. Now let's go. We're going to double dip on Bob and go the other direction. So Bob, what is one mystery that has affected you that has yet to be solved?
One mystery.
You don't have to go like super deep into it. Like there was this time when this man with one arm stole, but just kind of a general thing that you're still not sure.
One armed man killed my wife.
Yeah.
And I went to jail for it. Oh no, that's been done. A mystery that has affected me that has yet to be solved. I once saw a woman in a crowd. Our eyes met across the bazaar, and she smiled at me. We took a step towards each other, and then like a cart crashed in the middle of the thing, and everything went chaos, and I never saw her again. And she haunts my dreams.
I like that your character.
I don't even know if she was real.
You have a vaguely rom-com setup in this. This is like.
But it was really
and with a gritty setting like this, you can go a lot of ways with that.
Oh yeah, definitely. But
she was actually a succubus trying to like eat your soul.
Yeah,
that was what saved you, but you're still entranced.
Yeah, who knows?
All right, John, what is one mystery that has affected your character that has yet to be solved?
I'm going to lean into the Expanse detective sort of thing. There was a missing persons case, and for a second I thought about making it like a missing child, but no, I don't want to do that. I want to make it like a missing, like, teenager or, adult who is probably engaged in some sort of like smarmy business or being exploited. But, I was investigating it, and I just could never catch the lead, could never find out, And so I know because every lead got closed off, there was something bigger there, it wasn't just that one person, because then it would have been like, oh, we found the body, we found this, something would have happened. It was like, wait, no, somebody closed off that lead.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's tied to the watch. Like,
Okay.
whether or not that's the truth, I believe that wholeheartedly.
I like that. All right. So Brandon, what is one mystery that has affected your character that is yet to be solved?
Trying to think of something a little bit more intriguing, but I'm also, the thing that's coming back to me is whether somebody I ripped off is still after me. I was kind of thinking maybe it is tied directly to what I stole back in my original neighborhood, but I don't know whether I'm in the clear or not.
Okay.
There's a specter of somebody looking for me, potentially.
Okay. I like that. And Eric, what is a mystery that has affected your character that is yet to be solved?
How did I lose control so completely? Other members of my family and social circles definitely drank as much or more than I did, and yet they have not they never lost control.
I like the introspective angle on it is more of an internal mystery than an external one. That's nice.
Possibly more internal than external.
Yeah, possibly.
There might have been foul play at hand.
That's possible too. All right. So now we're going to double down on you, Eric, and go the other direction. Who have you let down?
One. Like, who haven't I let down, really? Like, I gave away my family. I gave away nearly all of our family secrets.
Okay.
And those are now floating around in the underbelly of the dock ward.
I sold them all.
All right, Brandon. Who is your character let down?
My parents, 100%. I forgot one part of this too, that I did steal something from my parents. Not too sure what it is. It was just an interesting thing on the mantle, and I grabbed it and took off along with what I had just stolen from somebody else, and decided not to come back. And definitely don't particularly want to run into my parents again.
Nice. All right, John, who is your character let down?
Would it be too cliche to say myself? Like, no. Is that already in there? Because, like, I imagine this sort of guilt-driven, like, and pulling into very Humphrey Bogart, like almost Spike from Cowboy Bebop-esque, like I have just failed, and so I have to keep going, and kind of moves between that, like, getting lost in depression to, all right, and now, no, I'm going to make this one work. And if it doesn't, there's that potential trigger for like I'm worthless, sort of thing, which is why they try so hard, and why he throws himself into danger in that Big Sleep Bogart-esque way, like, gonna let the rougher, gonna let the, gonna let Bob's character beat him up because, like, you know what, I deserve this. and when I'm done, I will probably be able to coax them into telling me why.
All right. And Bob, who have you let down?
We'll have to come up with a name for this person, but I let down a criminal who hired me to go after Drammin. And then I decided that I wasn't going to, finish that contract, and I turned around and I gave him the money back, and he was none too happy about it.
All right. I like it. Two of you have criminals that are potentially on your posteriors.
And I'm like, holy that worked. I got out of that. I don't know how.
All right. So that's some really good stuff there, guys. Thank you. All right. So one of the things I wanted to go over, I don't know if you all saw this in the document, but I saw a thing because I try not to have too many optional things from too many places, but there's also some great ideas floating around in a lot of different things. and I hit on the section in Arcana of the Ancients. And I'm not going to use a lot of that stuff because I don't necessarily want to have a lot of weird alien technology in this game, because this is much more of a grittier type, situation. But there was a thing about converting inspiration from 5th edition into something that's a little bit more like GM intrusions from Cypher System. So what I'm planning on using that for is I may offer you an intrusion. If you accept it, you get advantage, and you can give advantage to one other person. You can spend advantage to state something true in the scene that is not contradicting something that's already been established, in addition to spending it beforehand in order to roll with advantage. The other thing that I would like to say is, if you spend advantage on something that is related to one of your questions, you can, instead of rolling with advantage, basically make a passive check. But that's even for things that aren't normally passive checks. So like if you wanted to ensure that you got a 10 plus something and it's related to one of your questions, if it's an attack and you can justify it and you want to spend that inspiration for it, then you can reliably get that 10 plus your attack bonus to do that, because you are very focused on finding that woman that, that you saw, or, something like that, because it's an ongoing interest. So that's how I would like to use inspiration, if that sounds good for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
All right.
I love GM intrusions.
I like having that flexibility to throw something different into something on the fly, and I've gotten used to being able to do that with Star Trek, with Threat, and with Fate. So I kind of like having a little bit of that tool, even in a 5th edition framework. So when I saw that in Arcana of the Ancients, I was like, yeah, I could do that. So I think we'll go with that, and it seems like everybody's cool with that. Does anybody have any other questions about how we'll be doing things?
I don't think so.
Just technical question. How much will you be using like Roll20 maps compared to Theater of the Mind?
Probably will be doing most things Theater of the Mind, and
Perfect.
however you would like to roll your dice, you may roll them. I'll have my own initiative tracker for things like that, because initiative is one of the most annoying things to me ever. And if we could just figure out how to do something much simpler in the future, then that would be awesome. The main reason I don't completely deviate from 5th edition is because the weirdest thing is things like spell timing does get thrown off if you try and do like handoff initiative or something like that. And sometimes it doesn't matter, and other times it's like, don't hand off to them yet, because the spell will last a whole extra turn if you don't, and I don't want to get into that sort of calculation of things. But yeah, I'll track initiative. You guys can roll however you want to. I might have a little thing where I'm sketching vaguely how far somebody is, but I'm fairly flexible. I've been running a Tales of the Old Margrave campaign online for a few weeks now, and I just kind of keep track of things. And if somebody is 5 feet further away than they realized, I fudge it, because it's close enough. It's just so that people aren't saying I run 120 feet and then run another 120 feet after I stab them. It's just it's going to be Theater of the Mind, but I'll kind of keep an eye on things like that. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I want to hit before. Oh, one thing that I wanted to point out, I don't know if you noticed this. I did this on purpose. Instead of using XP or milestones, if you have downtime enough to train, you can train for a level. It's not going to be up to me at all. So if I tell you have 14 days of downtime and you don't spend 10 of those training for a level, you didn't get a level. It's basically just your character spending your downtime determining, I'm going to practice some and get a level.
Huh.
So it's going to be up to you if you want to spend your downtime not training. That's and there'll be situations where, and I'll let you know, like if we end on a cliffhanger, you're not getting downtime between sessions.
What are some other uses for downtime?
You can do things like spread rumors or make money.
Carouse.
Yeah, you can carouse. You can do criminal do criminals, do crimes and get stuff. There's that is one of the things that should be shared in D&D Beyond. If you look up in Xanathars, there's a whole bunch of downtime activities in there. So
I kind of like that idea, because when I think into real life, I'm like, where do I learn stuff? Partially on the job, right?
Mhm.
Partially I learned some new bit of JavaScript because we need to do that. But it takes about 10 days of downtime to go refresh
Mhm.
and dig in and look at, to level
what
that
did I
ability
really
up.
learn from this
Yeah.
thing that I just started doing?
I did it in 2 days and 10 days of Udemy courses to be like, oh, that's how JSON works. Like,
Mhm.
now I know, and then next time I learn something else.
Yeah. So yeah, I just it was something I wanted to try out. And so most of the time I'm probably going to give you the real world equivalent of downtime. So in other words, if we're playing every 2 weeks and we didn't end on a cliffhanger, I'll say you have 14 days of downtime. So if you want to spend 10 of those training to get a level, that's great. If you want to spend all 14 of those doing crime and stay first level.
So I'm rich but unskilled.
Just waiting for the bad thing to catch up with you. I'm trying to think. I will honestly say this has probably been one of my most productive session zeros that I have had. So thank all of you. I appreciate that.
I will try harder next time.
Hey,
For professionals.
one quick check. There was in the document, there was a fourth question.
Oh,
did
I not get to that? Oh, I did not. Oh my gosh, you are right, Bob. And that is one of the most.
That's a fun
important
question. That's
questions.
why.
Yes.
Thanks, Hermione.
I am so sorry.
Teacher, you forgot to give us homework.
All right, and we'll start with Bob, and we'll do the fourth question there. Who is one person or thing that is important to you?
One person or thing that is important to me. So I'm gonna say this. We're in the docks, right?
Mhm.
And it's pretty rundown rundown area. It's not high and fancy and everything like that. I'm envisioning that there are interspersed throughout this area, what's the term I'm looking for? Like the dock equivalent of like a brownstone or
Yeah,
brownstone's not the word I want, but it's like
Row housing?
Pardon me?
Row housing?
Yeah, row housing or like
Tenement.
Like a nice house, because brownstone brings nice house to my brain.
No, I'm thinking of like, it's just like here's a building and it's got like living space for like theoretically maybe like 4 people, or if you want to cram a family in it or whatever. Like, but there's this woman this older woman that runs this tenement building, whatever, and she gave me a break when I came into the area and let me stay without paying her up front. And so I kind of have a soft spot for her, and she treats me okay, and she's she's just this older woman who runs this place. Nobody gives her any shit. I kind of look after her. If anybody does give her shit, then they get the stink eye from me.
Okay.
And so far, nobody has tested that.
Is that the name of your gun, the stink eye?
I was kind of thinking something along that line.
Maybe.
That would be awesome.
Don't make me pull out stink eye. All right, let's bounce all the way to the other side. Eric, what is one person that is important to you?
So
One person or thing.
So definitely for some, okay, so I think that the apothecary shop, like one of the apothecary in the apothecary shop has been feeding, like giving me food, like just on the sly, kind of putting food where I will find it.
Okay.
And I'm imagining that my sister arranged that.
Ah.
I'm not sure if it would be more interesting if I know that or if I don't know that.
It's like your sister's like, we're not going to give him money because we don't know what he'll spend it on.
Know what he'll spend it on.
But I will give you money. Yeah. And there will always be a meal there when you
Right.
need it.
Okay.
So-
yeah, I mean, you don't have to decide right now, but you know.
I think I do know that. I mean, I think it's more fun if I do know that that my sister is doing it.
Mhm.
But she's absolutely doing it without the permission or knowledge of our parents.
Okay. So yeah, she probably stands out when she shows up in the docks, even if she tries to dress down for the location.
Right, and every once in a while she leaves like a note or something, like a bit of gossip or whatnot. I don't know if she, but I don't know if she knows that is also going to be something information I'm going to be able to sell for alcohol though.
Yeah, she's just thinking of it, keeping you appraised, and you're thinking of it as, well. This is probably worth something.
But I'm clean now. That's all in the past.
Yes.
I'm not drinking anymore.
You didn't trade one addiction for the addiction of power that you're.
That's part of the deal. That was part of the deal. That's part of the pact that I struck. Is I'm not allowed to imbibe anymore.
Dear Zindlane, Julia Transom has been having issues and is very emotional right now. Dear Zindlane, a demon has started visiting Julia. I didn't sell it to other people. I sold it to my patron.
I was just picturing like trying to fit the letter writing stage from Good Society into the. Anyway, John, what is one person or thing that is important to you?
You know, I pulled things from whatever I'm playing or watching at the time, and I'm gonna say there is a place nearby. Maybe it's an alleyway that for some reason flowers have just bloomed up in it, and it's one of those things where like I encountered it, and it was, since we were talking about, you know, Lord of the Rings and Hobbit, you know, earlier. It's one of it's like that scene where Bilbo gets above the trees and is like, and there's his moment of hope, his like moment of zen right there, and like maybe Drammin has like stumbled upon that and is like, hope still exists because this small sunlit patch of like irises is here, and he's even very cagey about visiting it so that nobody can see him go there, you know. It's just it's that metaphorical like idea that still exists in this world of the docks, in this world of Avalon, where everything is kind of dark and, you know, like a little hopeless.
Okay, I like that. And Brandon, what is one person or thing that is important to you?
So it seemed to be the more material one in this case. I have a pair of short swords. That's what I stole. And those are my most prized possession. I mean, that's why I stole them in the first place, because they looked really cool. So, but they're kind of my one of my particular tools that I can use to get out of trouble, and they've been always reliable.
Those sound like the kind of swords that need names.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
You know, like scalpel and.
I
was thinking like scalpel and cat's claw and Grey Wand and Heartseeker or Vera.
I'll come up with some names or something.
Yeah, because that definitely sounds like the type of thing. Like if you really treasure these are named swords. I like that.
Sparkle and frosting mane.
I'm thinking maybe they do even have like some sort of name on them, but it's unreadable, and I call them something else.
But like there's a mystery to it. Like these were
it's like getting a tattoo in a language you don't speak.
Yeah.
Creamy dumpling.
This side towards enemy.
Pointy end goes in first.
Stick them with the pointy end.
All right. I don't think. Thank you for reminding me of that, Bob. I don't know how I
no
skipped over
problem.
that last question, but I'm glad we got that in there because yeah, that's kind of a character defining one. That's why I put that one in there last. All right. So yeah, if you have any ideas on what you want to do for your backgrounds, you'll still get like the languages and equipment and the special feature for the background, but the questions, that's what we did here. So don't worry as much about the questions.
Do you want backgrounds right now, or
I don't care about backgrounds now. I just like to have them
Okay.
before we play.
got mine?
So yeah, I wouldn't worry quite as much, but in some cases they might be more evident than others. So the only other thing I was going to bring up, and this is as much for if anybody watches this as for this group, but as far as alignments go, and with me in 5e, if you want to pick an alignment, that's great. And what an alignment is it's what you want your character to be, but it has no other bearing. It's like any other trait. It's like, it would be really nice if I were orderly and good. And if I murder people every day, but really wanted to do that, it was a trait that I really wanted to accomplish and I failed, because humans contain multitudes and alignment is a really imperfect tool for that.
My alignment is a goal I work towards and constantly fail at.
Yeah. Well, no, and seriously, I would rather view it that way. Like, I really want to be lawful good. I really wake up every day meaning to be lawful good, and I consistently fuck it up. It's that sort of mindset. I would almost rather that be what you were doing. And if that's what you want to do and you want to pick an alignment and you do play towards that, then I'll say that's another one of those things that if you wanted to spend inspiration and do like a passive 10 plus whatever when you spend inspiration, that's another thing where that would probably work. But it's not something. I'm not going to change your alignment. I'm not going to hound you for not having played your alignment, because alignment is just a philosophy. It's basically like saying, I'm a stoic. You're not acting very stoic. Well, I guess I'm a bad stoic. That's exactly how I am picturing alignment in this case.
It's actually I've never kind of thought of it in those terms exactly, but I really kind of like that because it is sort of like, yes, this is what I aim for,
Mm-hmm.
and life messes me up along the way.
Yeah. And maybe there are some cosmic beings that can actually embody that thing, but those are cosmic beings tied to the forces of the universe. You're human. You are not a cosmic being made up of belief systems. You are you are a bunch of conflicting emotions inside a bag of chemicals. That makes things very complicated. So I think, does anybody have any questions about, one other thing I wanted to address. I am good with any length of time from 2 to 4 hours. I wanted to gauge how long most people wanted to go. And if we say 4, we still might wrap up around 3 hours, and I don't necessarily want to start something. So I'm not going to force us to go to 4 every time we play if we want to go to 4. I'm just trying to get a general idea what length we want to go when we're playing.
And unlike tonight, we're generally going to try and start at 7?
Yeah.
Based on the original documentation?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it's going to be 7 Central. So.
Oh, okay. So.
Yeah.
Eastern. Okay. Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All caffeine up early in the day, so I'm good with whatever.
Yeah, I'm good to go 4.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And then, like I said, there are times when I have 4 hours blocked aside, but if it feels like it's right to end it at 3, I will end it at 3. I don't like pushing through to say we always must be at 4, because I would rather it feel like a logical place. And sometimes a logical place is a cliffhanger, but I would rather, yes, I would rather have that right stopping point than to feel like the momentum is ebbing and still keep trying to push through for another hour, because I've had way too many games where I tried to do that. And it's like, wow, that should have been way more climatic, but we just kind of half-assed it, and that was not nearly as much fun as it would have been. So I've been, in my old age in the last few years, I've gotten a lot more conscious of that sort of ebb and flow of momentum in a game. So thank you all for playing. Thank anyone that might be watching this. If I ever post this in any form whatsoever. And we will be doing this again in 2 weeks. And I think I'm going to sign off. I will ask everybody if they want to do a quick sign off here. Bob, would you like to say anything before we leave?
I have enjoyed this session 0. I'm looking forward to this campaign, and if you are watching, thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll entertain you.
Thank you. Eric, would you like to say anything before we sign off?
I'm Eric, and thanks for playing. This is great. I'm looking forward to the stories that these characters are going to tell together.
Yay. John, would you like to say anything before we sign off?
Thank you for watching, and I'm sorry. I don't know what for yet. I will live up to that promise.
Oh, yeah.
All right. And Brandon, would you like to say anything before we sign off?
This is going to be awesome. I'm really looking forward to this. I think this is a good group. And yeah, if anyone's watching, cool. Thanks.
All right.